All right, one more time. The program still this morning on ITV. Sincere apology. We couldn't continue with Abuja there because of the sound quality. Yes, the program is still here, and we are going to be looking at our first discussion this morning, the ongoing relationship. Talking about the coup in Niger. And of course, the last is not said, just like what I said a while ago. And in spite of the fact that some persons are beginning to see the coup in Niger, that our own president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is being personalistic, about it now. Now, it had to take the efforts of the special advisor on media and publicity yesterday, in the person of Ajuri Ngilali, to let Nigerians know that Bola Ahmed Tinubu does not have any personal score, any personal problem, any personal issue to settle with the coup situation in Niger. Only the fact that he's the chairman of ECOWAS, and of course the onus lies on him to act accordingly. Well, we understand that as at yesterday, fresh sanctions now have been leveled against the military junta in Niger, and also against Niger. As we speak now, it has to do with economic sanctions, and of course the 284-kilometer railway line connecting Niger and Nigeria has been disconnected. In other words, no movement between these two countries. And of course, the relationship between this country is severe. There's no doubt about that. Well, to look at the ongoing issue in Niger, we are so privileged to have a foremost political analyst. And of course, he was a member of the Presidential Campaign Council of the All Progressives Congress in the last presidential election. And of course, he's still a formidable member of the All Progressives Congress. Please, may I let you know that we're so privileged this morning to have Mr. Ayamehwe Edokbolo. So you're welcome to the program this morning on ITV.
I thank you for having me, my brother Evans. Good morning, viewers.
All right, so as we await resolutions between the Nigerian authority and of course the ECOWAS authority now, give us your perspective. What you think is going on in Niger? The situation in Niger, let's have your perspective.
Yeah, I like to first of all depart by observing that a whole lot of analysts or public commentators on this matter, seem to have, heavily parochialized the discussion or the evolutions of issues, as it has to do with the recent coup d'etat in the Republic of Niger. And parochialization in the sense that, they tend to be looking at it from the standpoint of perhaps, grievances around the last presidential election in Nigeria, and other, very flimsy excuse. Some people even raising ethnic issues to it, that for any reason that we're going to take military action into Niger, a certain ethnic, section of the country. There are soldiers or there are people who are in the military will not participate. And I just look at this and say, what's an irony in terms of people who you expect, to be deeply intellectual in appraising this issue. I like to start by saying that we must understand that Niger, by landmass, is bigger than Nigeria. Is over 1 million square kilometer country. Nigeria is about 900,000 square kilometer country. But unfortunately, Niger has over 60–70%, about 80% of its landmass is bedevilled by the Sahara Desert.
Yeah.
So it has only 20% there for arable, residential, business, and other living or lively areas. So having said that, we need to make that understanding. ECOWAS itself is a regional economic and security bloc of the Economic Community of West Africa States. And so when we understand, we have to take it from there. It was when President Tinubu was sworn in, some weeks or days after, it was the turn of Nigeria to preside over ECOWAS. And therefore, as president, he was sworn in as ECOWAS chairman. And so when something happened in a bloc, it becomes an issue of the bloc, not necessarily an issue of the president of Nigeria. And so it's a bloc thing. And so we have to look at it from that standpoint. I know no country in the world wants to, support or seem to be overtly supporting a country that is managed by military rule. And so every country wants to be, because the world is evolving towards democracy, ensuring rule of law, ensuring, high level of, civilian and unfettered civilian military engagements. And so based on that, Nigeria as a country participating in ECOWAS has to air its view. And ECOWAS has to take a position. So assuming there are 7 or 8 members participating in the discussion, and more than half endorse an action, you no longer call it the names of the countries that endorse the action. You call it an ECOMOG action. We must understand that point. So as much as we are all concerned, deeply worried about economic issues in our country, which all of us are involved in, and praying and seeing how we can synergize to get this whole thing to the next level so that our economy will improve, we should not for any reason, be short-sighted in our looking at our neighbors, what happens with our neighbors. Because we now have terrorist organizations now funding or seeking to fund a military takeover of countries' administration, so that they can have, we saw what happened in ISIS. ISIS was Islamic State of Syria and Iran. They just emerged as a country. Breakaway party, they just announced that they are not a country. And we knew what they represented and the threat they posed to countries around it. So we are also mindful. And so ECOWAS is looking at what is going to happen, what has happened, because a president was there and suddenly was just deposed by his own military colleagues or staff or whatever. And so they are trying to see how certain actions can be taken with a view to restoring democratic order.
All right, so let me pause you because I have the next guest now, Mr. Philip Agwebo. So let's quickly take a short pause so that we can bring him into the discussion segment this morning. All right, thank you. The program still this morning on ITV. We have Mr. Philip Agwebo joining us on the show this morning. And of course, we are still looking at the situation in Niger, talking about the coup in Niger. And of course, more sanctions is being handed down. We understand that as at yesterday, that ECOWAS had to give more sanctions to the military junta in Niger. And of course, that is beginning to have some adverse effects now, not only on Niger, as it were, but even on Nigeria as a nation. So we're going to be looking at all that as the discussion goes on. Mr. Philip, you're welcome one more time to this show. All right, so let's start by the coup in Niger. Perhaps you may want to join other analysts that are of the opinion that this coup is different. I mean, for the very first time, we are seeing a coup whereby the Nigerians, people that are supposed to be adverse to military regime, but they seem to be in support of what is going on in Niger. What is your perspective in this direction?
Well, as we all know, coups, actually, they are not the best practice in the world as regards democratic practice. But certain factors actually leads to coup. Like in the case of Niger, it's a case of where you can see that it's a case of where the people are tired of the system. They want to be out of poverty. The government has actually not delivered on their promises for long. So it's actually what led to their coup. And you can see for the first time, people that are supposed to be against the military junta now celebrating because they have felt liberated from the poverty, from the lack of education and so many other things happening around the world that they are lacking. So they feel the government is the one that will definitely bring them out of coup, out of this predicament. So that's why they feel to be celebrated. And again, they see the coup as a liberation from the superpower, from the foreign influence over their economy and politics.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Ayamekwe, let me come to you one more time. I think I may have to thank you for, trying to elucidate on the erroneous belief that it is perhaps, Tinubu's war, A lot of persons have actually thought that same way. Only the fact that Tinubu had to do the needful as the chairman of ECOWAS and all that. Now, but let's look at the situation one more time. A little wonder, what does the military junta, what they really want? I mean, 2 days ago, we saw a delegation that comprised of the African Union and, of course, the United Nations and some members of the ECOWAS now, coming together, going to Niamey to try to broker peace with the military junta. We were told that they were not even allowed into Niamey. That's the Nigerian capital now. So from your own perspective, what do you think Abdulrahman Tiani, now the head of the military junta, what does he really want?
First of all, I'd like to appreciate my co-discussant, for giving us, perspective as to facts that underpins military takeover of government and the borders on the grievances, the displeasure, the disgust of the people as to the manners with which they have been led over time. And so I would like to take it further by saying that this very coup, we must understand, is also an expression against all manners of neo-colonialism in the Republic of Benin. There is a very strong presence of a superpower by name France, and which the people or a section of the elites strongly believe, that its actions and tendencies, has been audaciously exploitative, and there has to be a stop at this point. And we can see all the expressions or the manifest, positions of the military junta, severing relations with France. And so to that extent, we saw some jubilations in social media and the mainstream media. But let me say that, public intellectuals must be wary of jumping to conclusions by the fact that you see television protests by some people celebrating, or a pro-junta protest. It does not mean that is the majority position of the people, because anybody can always organize protests to throw up the sentiments of popularity. It's normal in any society. In any society, please, or in all societies.
Yeah, but if you say so, we've not seen a situation whereby there's an anti-protest now.
Yeah, you see, I'm going there. You have to understand that a junta is in place. And once a junta is in place, anti-junta elements are scared, because all instruments and apparatuses of state media and all that, they are in the control of the junta. It's just like what happened here when we saw pro-Nadeco movement and all that. They were operating from underground. Because the military is not a set of people you raise your head to want to challenge. Before you challenge them, you must be fortified. There must be some level of sophistry of support and networking, to the extent that the military junta themselves in operation, they are even wary and restrained from taking certain actions against you, because they know that there are also certain powers behind you. So, but by and large, I like to say that the Nigerian issue that is in focus is something that must be handled with all manifest care, because it's a time bomb. And if you see Nigerians now, if you do a census, if you do an opinion poll now, you will see that a good number of Nigerians, a majority of Nigerians are completely adverse to, any deployment of our military into the Republic of Nigeria. A good number of Nigerians. But I want to also caution most of us, to understand that much as this is not a Tinubu or a Nigerian issue, it's a bloc issue, as I said before the arrival of our, my co-discussor. We must understand that once there is a bloc, once you are in the bloc and issues of a truncation of a democratic system takes place, you don't expect the bloc to clap for you and say Hosanna. There must be reactions. And so there must be slew of sanctions to show, because don't also forget that ECOWAS is under Organization of African Unity, which later became AU, African Union. Then African Union is also under United Nations. So there are regional and multi-regional organizations that are looking at each other. And so the way ECOWAS handled this issue, will present it as to whether it is a responsible member of the AU. And the way AU oversees the management of this issue will also define whether it is a responsible member of the United Nations. Yeah. And so these are issues. So what President Tinubu has done in his capacity as chairman of ECOWAS is to be seen to be completely indisposed. Otherwise, it could be easy to conclude that Nigeria is behind the military junta in that country too.
As chairman of the ECOWAS.
As chairman of the ECOWAS.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Philip, now perhaps you have to give us more light now into the situation. Well, I like the fact that the way you started by trying to really understand what is going on. That is actually a fight against bad governments in Niger and in other parts of Africa where we recently experiencing a military coup. But let us start from where Mr. Ayamakwe was trying to say that it's actually a fight, if I get it correctly now, is a fight against neo-colonialism.
Neo-colonialism, yeah.
Now, that perhaps puts, some other analysts to misunderstand the situation. Is it a fight against neo-colonialism or a fight against bad governance, as it were?
From the lookout of how it's going, it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
It's actually a combination of both.
Okay.
Yes. If you look at the various blocks, in this whole fight, in this whole matter, you discover that the France who have been there, that the people see as exploiting the common men, common resources of the people in Niger, compared to the other end of it, which is the American bloc, also have an interest. If you check the whole system, you discover that this cool stuff have been coming up, it has been a current trend for some time now in the African sub-region, like West Africa. The interest of foreign bodies have not really played out the way it seems to want to play out now. It's going to play out. But they don't want to come out openly. They want to use process, like using maybe Nigeria and some other countries to start up a fight so that probably they can come in better. So it's a combination of the neocolonialism stuff having, to have a better control of it. And the other party, like, the case of Russia too, also wanting to have a play there. But they are all at the background, watching to see how the African leaders handle these issues. So it's a combination of the people wanting to liberate themselves from neocolonialism and at the same time getting themselves out of poverty, liberating themselves from the bad governance, which is predominant in Niger.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Ayamekwe, now you see that it will take extra, maybe power from us here back home now to really understand the situation. Just yesterday, the advisor to the president on media and publicity now, in the person of Mr. Ajirin Gilali, came out to the media to debunk the insinuation that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is fighting a personal fight now. Now, we understand that the president has also directed the CBN to ensure that those that are perceived to be sponsoring the coup in Niger are sanctioned. Now, from the way Nigerians will look at it now, the CBN, brought into the coup in Niger. I mean, people now really may want to say that, look, this thing is probably a Nigerian fight. Mr. Ayamekwe.
I want to sympathize with those who are largely ignorant of international, politics or international political relations.
Yeah.
There are interplays. A country is not an island to itself. A country is not an island to itself. So you now have blocks. And so when something like this erupts, like the eruption of the military junta in Republic of Niger, you expect a block reaction because it's a member of a bloc.
We're talking about the CBN now.
I'm going there. And so now, because it's a member of a bloc, those fellow members of the bloc must be seen not to be in support. And so to be seen not to be in support, a slew of sanctions must be seen, to be implemented. And that slew of sanctions, you're only hearing that of Nigeria now because you are in Nigeria. If you go to other West African countries, I stand to be corrected, their central banks are also implementing the same. So that would define the non-personalization of this matter by President Tinubu. Because if you go to find out that other central banks of other West African states are not doing the same thing, then the president would have, put himself out there, negatively as someone who is personalizing it. So I know that it's a block issue, because if you follow what is happening, for instance, between Russia and Ukraine, you see that the European Union, once a sanction is resolved, you see all the countries in the Union, imposing and implementing that sanction against Russia, because they are overtly and unmistakably supporting Ukraine in this matter. The United States is same thing. So the whole West, so to speak, as a multi-block, are slamming sanctions against Russia. So sanction implementation, because the bloc itself, like ECOWAS does not have a bank. ECOWAS does not have an office. ECOWAS is an amalgamation of countries. So it is those countries that will effect or implement those sanctions. That is just now you saw that of the CBN. So it's not going to stop there. It's all these bloc members that are going to ensure, because the purpose of doing this is to cut off, is to try to make that country feel some level of isolation. And so when you are confronted with isolation, the attempt, therefore, the option open for you is to come to the negotiation table. And once you open the negotiation table, one of the main positions is you will want you to give a deadline for your exit. And so one of the options open to that junta, it was okay, in view of the protestations by our people, we need to do this, we need to do this. We hereby undertake that in the next 90 days we'll be out of this place. We just want to put certain things right. The democratic government will be restored. The legislative arm of government will be restored. Because once a military government comes in place, the first thing they dislodge is dislodge the legislature. Sack all of them, they all go home. Then the executive structures across the states are also demolished, because you no longer have governors, you don't have military governors or military administrators, as case may be. So all of those things, you now assure us, okay, we are putting up an electoral process, or we are going to reinstate these people back after we have done what we want to do within the next 90 days. So by the time that negotiation, that bilateral discussion commences, you will see that these sanctions, especially when there is seriousness on the part of the military junta to comply, you will see the countries gradually slowing down on those sanctions. Okay. So gradually weeding off all isolationist resolves against those countries, gradually, bringing them down for the benefit of that country.
All right, so despite the sanctions now, the military junta in Niger seems not to be disturbed. As a matter of fact, we understand that Abdurrahman and his cohorts now had to cut off air flights coming into Nigeria from Niger. He had to put a stop.
I shut down on the airspace.
It shows that he's not even concerned. Now, but there are adverse effects of these sanctions now. Just a while ago, my co-anchor in Abuja, we talked about how Nigeria having Nigerians in Niger. I mean, internally displaced persons from Nigeria, trapped in Niger. As we speak now, we understand that the Nigerian authority is not looking at them with some good eyes, so to say. And of course, now let's look at all this now. Implications. How do we go about all these adverse implications, Philip?
Yeah, there's little or none government can do presently.
Just allow people to suffer the effects of the implications?
In other countries, in other civilized countries in the world, when there are issues like this, probably it has not even gotten to a case of war. So there's no case of recall or bringing it back home. So it's a matter of they have to take it the way they've seen it.
No, because we're talking about Nigerians like you and I.
in Niger.
In Niger right now. The effect is on them.
Yes.
Now, most businessmen and women, that deal on agricultural products and all that, as we speak now, about 100,000, goods, not totaling millions of naira, is being trapped.
Yes. They have no control as an individual over the decision of government. But especially in the case of this crisis, where you're having multinationals, where you're having international countries playing into it. It's not what a man or a group of persons can resolve, or couple of bodies can resolve on their own. So it's a crisis. It's one of the problems or issues of a political impasse. In any given society, when there are issues like this, people must, at a time, feel the inch of it. That is exactly what is going on there. So the only thing they can do is to get themselves, put themselves together, you know, because there must be some, you know, gains and loss. That is the truth. Yes. While the crisis is ongoing, some people will be profiting out of it, while some people, other persons will be losing too, like in case of war. Some people make huge money from war, during the period of war, while others loses too. So that is what is playing out there. It must come to pass, even to the Nigerians, not just Nigerians, there are other nationalities in Niger. There are some other Africans, others in Niger, so it's going to affect everybody.
Okay. Now, Mr. Ayamekwe, perhaps you may have to support Mr. Phillips' point now. Yeah. Yesterday, we understand the price of onion, a basket of onion has gone up now. I mean, before now, almost about 70% of onion that Nigeria consumes comes from Niger. I mean, there is an embargo, a trade embargo between Niger and Nigeria. These are implications, and we're having the effects here. So how do we go about that?
Yeah, like my co-discussant said, in every crisis, you know, there are hits that must be felt by all parties involved. The Nigerians themselves, the business-minded Nigerians themselves who are in Nigeria are also cut off. They are also entrapped because they can also, you know, access Niger. So as a bigger country, a lot of those people look up to Nigeria, and so as Nigerians, we are concerned about our nationals. And so that was why President Tinubu deployed respectfully, you know, former head of state, General Abdul Salam, and Sultan of Sokoto, you know, to Niger for a diplomatic engagement. You know, I also read what distinguished Commodore Bode George wrote, you know, in a treatise or a missive, and he tried to fault Tinubu that he didn't carry, you know, civil servant diplomats along, just carry politicians or the head of Sultan. And some of these things, you know, they are not necessary. Some of those arguments are not necessary. By the status of a former head of state, there is no diplomatic orientation that you can talk of that a former head of state does not have. Of course. That is so. People just want to argue for the sake of argument, and it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, and so
that was why I said just now that this whole matter has been substantially parochialized, and it's unfortunate. So the purpose of the head of state and Sultan going there, Sultan, by the grace of, by all standard of measure, is the head of Islam or Muslim community in the country, whether we like it or not. And so his presence there to a fellow Muslim country, you know, will speak a lot of things and make a lot of things, you know, to go, you know, less tougher than it should have ordinarily be. And the head of state, they all know the implication of Abdul Salam coming there. They also know the implication because generals respect generals. You know, in any community. And so based on this, I think that diplomatic discussions, diplomatic relations between Nigeria and Nigerians would have definitely been affected, but it is going to improve over time. You know, what our people are suffering now, you know, my hearts and empathies are with them, you know, by every standard of appreciation. But because anybody could have been cut off in that situation. Yeah, but I also expect too that Nigeria will take, you know, rescue measures in terms of humanitarian measures to see that aeroplanes, as it is done by other countries of the world.
Abdul Rahman and his members, they don't want to see you.
Those things will be done. It's a normal thing. You see, all of what Abdul Rahman is doing now, there are normal things in every junta. You must try to show that on, you know, on common rascality. It's normal. You must show that, no. But as he himself is displaying that, he's also deploying diplomats. Because no country wants to be isolated. No one. I'm telling you, I'm a political scientist. No country wants, because in isolation, you are on your own. Your people can't come in, your people can't go out. What life are you living? So he himself is also concerned. But what he is trying to do is to penetrate in such a manner of acceptability. He wants to be accepted as an ECOWAS member, as a member of the ECOWAS heads of state and government. But the grounds for doing that is that you have obstructed a democratic administration. And so it must come with this type of reactions from the bloc called ECOWAS. And so African Union, like I said, is also looking at it. Now, talking about invading Niger, as most people have fears or anticipated. Like I said, if Niger there are clear facts that it poses a security threat to national security of Nigeria, definitely that country will be invaded. It's not a matter of personal interest of anybody. Yes, we have economic issues, underlying economic issues that is bedliving our country. All of us are suffering and feeling the impact of high cost of
national security now, how exactly do you mean?
What it means is this: if, as it stands now, the military junta looks at, bringing its soldiers close to the Nigerian borders, and we also understudy by security analysis of issues that they are planning to invade Nigeria. No country wants to be invaded, especially when facts are before you that these people are clearly planning to invade you. And so the next thing is you will deploy your soldiers and you will want to take them out. Because we are all suffering economic issues now. But if the country is invaded, it's no longer about hunger now.
It should be worse.
It's worse. It's a worse. You are not in a worst case scenario. You are not talking about survival. And that's a worst case scenario. So that's why government ordinarily must put its eyes on what is happening in Nigeria. What is their objective? Who are those behind them? Okay, we are aware that the Wagner Group announced to the whole world 2 weeks before the coup that their next mission is in Africa. So after making that announcement, about 2 weeks later or thereabout, I may not be sure of the actual date now.
About 2 weeks later,
the military showed up his head in Nigeria. And so it tells you that there are international politics to some of these things.
Okay. Now, Philip, let me come to you now. By tomorrow, ECOWAS is going to be having its summit now, I think for about the 3rd time since this coup started. And the summit has really not yielded anything. Now, this is a kind of... it seems the ECOWAS strength is being tested here. Its reputation, so to say. Now, what do you think this means for the ECOWAS now? Tomorrow's summit being Thursday. What do you expect? What should they be talking about? I mean, all their efforts seems to be failing. Philip.
Yes, I think the ECOWAS as an organized body, we don't want to rush into any actions that they will have a regret. So I feel they are understanding the situation, while other arrangements are going on to broker peace. Because both parties actually, both the Niger government and the ECOWAS body, everybody wants peace. So as a result of that, I think that in their meeting, it's going to be more on how to get the issues resolved. That is going to be the basic thing, how to get it resolved. So on that ground, you discover that the ECOWAS as a body, definitely Niger is part of ECOWAS. So they cannot just take a hasty decision without having some, good thinking, due consultations with other allies too. They also have allies like the AU and others. So that is what is actually going to play out.
Yeah, Niger being part of ECOWAS now, I think we need to reiterate here, for the purpose of this discourse, that they'll be suspended from the bloc.
They'll be suspended, of course.
And Abdurrahman and his, but they are not even interested in your ECOWAS as it were now. They don't want to be part of the summit and all that.
Such is bound to be.
Yeah.
For now, for a proper negotiation, because I see them not wanting to negotiate from the backside, or from the disadvantage point. So they must, as he rightly said, they must put up some fight, at the initial stage.
Okay.
Yeah, and then at that level, they can come to the round table. They'll definitely be resolved. It will be resolved.
Okay, Edokola, what do you think ECOWAS should be talking about tomorrow? What is it that they've not done that they should be thinking about now?
Yeah, ECOWAS will most likely broaden its diplomatic engagements with Niger from the standpoint of indirect relations. But what they have attempted to do thus far, at least as far as my study and appraisal of the issue is concerned, is try to go direct, try to deploy a distinguished former head of state and the Sultan to go there, send some people from Odenwo local government and others to go there, which has not, without due respect, heeded the desired goal. So now what option will be available to them, which I think is the most reasonable thing, is to approach Niger through indirect. Indirect in the sense that if you look at the protests, the pro-junta protests that was shown on social media and everywhere, you will see some glimpses of pro-Putin and pro-Russia. I don't know if you saw it.
Pro-Wagner group now.
Pro-Wagner. Yeah, pro-Wagner. You know, saying that that is where they go. And you saw some resentment, very obvious, against France. So it means that, you know, Russia can be approached. You know, because there must be a backbone.
If Russia is being approached now,
when I say that's what I'm saying. When I say indirect diplomatic relations, they have been going direct. Indirect means that, okay, let's look at a more friendly ally of this person. But let's approach that ally.
Would that be to the interest of the United Nations?
And you see, no, you know, it's not about United Nations now. It's about how democratic order can be restored in Niger. Because like you said, they have been suspended. But regardless of their suspension, they are still geopolitically a member of ECOWAS because they are within the
Sahel region. Yeah.
And so I haven't said that. Approaching Russia, because just now, United States has signed off its interest in Niger and suspended its over $100 million annual grant to Niger.
Yeah, but Niger, they have their troop in
of course, they have 1,000 troops in their military base there. At the same time, Russia has its military presence in Niger before the coup. So all of these countries have, because Niger is a fertile ground for all kinds of, exploration, especially for uranium. You know, because the world has gone nuclear now, and so nuclear energy is what is now relied upon in terms of powering industries and all that, and even making of explosives and making of arms and ammunition. So Niger is a large holder of uranium, but I stand here to tell you that Nigeria has larger uranium than Niger. Okay. So, but I haven't said that. They exploit that, because that enclave between you and I is a jungle, with all due respect. As jungleistic as you want to think Nigeria is, in terms of, you know, certain things that are being exploited and not accounting for the nation's internally generated revenue, you know, profiles. In Niger, it is worse. That's why I said it's more of a jungle. In case you want to call Nigeria a jungle, that country is an enclave of a food jungle. And so that's why all of these countries, you know, have been going deep exploration. They go there, they carry these things, even unrecorded and all that, because they have settled one person here and there. And so this thing goes on. And so that's why, for instance, I said that the protest or the pro-junta protest clearly talk about an anti-neocolonialism. We are tired of all your traces of neocolonialism. Because between you and I, these same countries that are involved in these things, they are the same countries that are army rebel groups.
Yeah, but
they are army rebel groups.
I think you have to be careful with the way you say that now. That is anti-neocolonialism and all that.
Yes.
Some persons are of different opinion. They would say that it's bad government. Most of the countries
we have agreed that it is both bad government and neocolonialism.
Yeah, most of these countries that have been taken over by the coup junta now in Africa. Look into the civilian rule of these countries. The civilian president, they were really not trying, as it were. I mean, I'm not trying to judge Bassor now, but if you go through the fillers of Nigerians, I mean, we saw the jubilation, the wide jubilation.
Like I said, moderator, I stand here to be corrected. Every junta is capable of organizing jubilations. It's a normal thing. It's not like two people contesting. If you look at the crowd supporting these two people, you will find it difficult to say who is going to win. But at the end of the day, we have seen people attending crowd, you know, attending this crowd. They're the same people moving. We have seen all those things on social media. I don't want to mention their labels. So it's a normal thing to gather people to want to jubilate and all of those things. That is not to say that the Bazoum man that has been removed was by any standard such a good or excellent person. He has his failings and failures and all that. One cannot take that away. But every junta will want to whip up the sentiment of acceptability and popularity. It's a normal thing all over the world, I say.
All right, so Philip, as we draw the conclusion on this segment now, let's speak to our elections in Africa. Because all these issues we are talking about now, they emanate from the kind of elections, the way our leaders emerge. Yeah, truth be told, I know you may find that funny, but I must say it here. I mean, what do you take of a situation whereby presidents emerge in Africa, and of course, their emergence becomes so very controversial controversial. Basso, he had also a controversial emergence, results and all that. If you go to other African countries, they had the same thing. I mean, I don't want to mention names now, Mr. Ayamekwe. We have a situation that is very close to us here, still very, very contextual. Cases are in court, so to say.
That's
so
correct.
what do we make of this situation in Africa? That results are contextual after, they are announced. Mr. Philip.
You see, the African countries or the African continent have to actually look inwards over election matters. The first thing for a country to develop is to appoint or elect capable hands in government. The moment you get it wrong there, definitely every other thing will go wrong. If the various countries of Africa do not place enough concern about elections, we always have this problem. It cannot be resolved. Because the issues of being aggrieved, protest here and there starts from elections. Take for instance, if it's glaring, a lot of people want to, these issues can actually come down if elections are fair. If elections are fair, if you go to a poll and it's clear to you that you have lost an election, if you want to begin to make issues out of it, some persons close to you, or a lot of persons, you don't get that popularity to go further. But when it's clear that you are popular enough, you are most competent, or rather you won the election and it's being turned against you, definitely there will be uproar. That is exactly what's happening around Africa. So African countries should take that as a priority by electing capable leaders in the first place. Not just capable, a leader of their choice. Let me use the word capable.
Of the people's choice.
Yes, everybody's capable.
Yeah.
Yes, everybody's capable.
Yeah.
It doesn't need a rocket science to rule any country. But let the people, elect a person of their choice. If it's the will of the people to have XY as their president, so be it. But by the time electoral body, some cabals, influence, international and others begin to interfere in local politics, there will be issues.
Okay. Now, Ayamekwe Edokpolo, the All Progressives Congress is in court, is in tribunal with two major political parties in the last election. The Labour Party is in court, the People's Democratic Party is in court, and hence we are talking about elections. We're talking about results, the way results emerge and all that. Now, for some people, whether you like it or not now, we've also heard in the media that some persons have said that perhaps the president is being personalistic about the Niger situation now because he probably doesn't also want military takeover in Nigeria. Edokpolo, I want you to react, maybe debunk that belief, Mr. Edokpolo.
Yeah, the first moral responsibility of a good president is to see that at all times there is a country. And at all times, the stability of the polity and economy is substantially in good order. The first moral responsibility. And so I learned that from Obasanjo in all his traits and activities as president. He said the country was handed over to him. And so he will resist any secessionist tendency. He was handed a country, so he wants to hand it over. So if you have any succession, you can do it under the next or incoming administration, not under the administration. So it underpins a moral responsibility of a good president to see that there is a country. And so if President Tinubu is conscious that there should be no military upsurge or military takeover in Nigeria, that for me is a moral responsibility and a distinguished obligation he has given to himself and his God. And so having said that, I also want to say that, yes, the issues of elections, are cascading in all forms of, irregularities, manipulations, interferences, as my co-discussant has mentioned and all that. Yes, it is painful because a good number of us, find, putting our pictures on posters as something that is unpleasurable because of some of these traits. I must confess, I must admit to you, it's unfortunate, and so that in itself prevents or restrains otherwise patriotic or distinguished minded persons who have mental capacity to lead the country to Eldorado, prevents or restrains them from coming on board. Because when you look at the pictures and the scenarios of election, you ask yourself, are we at war? No, are we at war? You know, election is supposed to be a process where you just freely stroll there, you do it, and you'll be sure that the result will count. And so we also know why the desperations here and there and all that. Okay, for instance now, in Nigeria now, we are talking about 2 people. It's not actually 2. There are about 4 parties that have gone to court. And so, no, I love your choice of words, major.
Yeah.
Major, I love that. So, but if you look at 2 major political parties, this one claiming saying I ain't win, this one claiming saying I ain't win. And so it also presents a case of something that is, you know, that is shrouded in the, you know, deeper complexity, deeper complication. Well, if it is one person now, we say, okay, but if 2 people, so that was why, for instance, a current senator of the National Assembly said the other day that these 2 other parties are perhaps going to struggle who took second. So, but as comical as that may sound, I like to say that the polity, the fact that it's bedevil with all manner of interferences, desperations, manipulations, you know, or cabal tendencies, is unfortunate, and it's something all of us must, you know, apply our minds to see that we redress it, if not for ourselves, for our children and the incoming generation. Because a good person must try, you know, to be on the world map, impart on it, and so that the other coming generations will have a better world. And so that is how the world has been evolving. And so we should not also, you know, be indifferent. So I want to say that elections, you know, elections and political actors' irresponsible behaviors account majorly for political instabilities in West Africa or African states. You know, I must admit that it is a fact, and it is one of those things, you know, that it's one of the you know, precursing factors, you know, that brings military junta, and that's why a lot of people are thanking God that we have not had such experience in Nigeria, because we have had very, very deep, you know, complications in our politics. And so I pray that some of these things get better. With also, beyond prayers, we must also participate and see how we get more clear.
Okay. All right. So I want to say a very big thank you to my analyst here now, Mr. Philip Agwebo, a political expert and, of course, a political analyst. Mr. Philip, thank you so much for finding time to come. And also the renowned Dokpolo Ayamehwe, a member of the All Progressives Congress. He was a member of the Presidential Campaign Council in the last presidential election. Mr. Ayamehwe, thank you so much. Now, some of the facts about the Nigerian war is the implications of the suspension now, the sanctions is very, very real. As we speak now, we understand that a total number of about 1,000 trucks conveying goods worth over 350 million naira from Niger to Nigeria, you know, remain trapped in the borders. They cannot come into Nigeria. A while ago, we said that the prices of onion, you know, have gone up as a result of the fact that more than 70% of onion is the staple food that we all use in our homes. They come from Niger. They cannot come into Nigeria because of the sanction. And of course, goods and services also cannot move from Nigeria into Niger. All those are some of the implications that we are having as a result of the sanctions in the COUP. Then also, we also talked about how in the first place, it will amaze you to know that most Nigerians are first cousins to Nigerians. If you go to bordering states, take for example Sokoto, as a matter of fact, the former president Buhari, he accepted the fact that he has first cousins in Niger. Now, what I'm trying to say is that most Nigerians are first cousins to Nigerians. So you can see that these 2 countries cannot afford to.
Even our names are similar.
Yes.
Niger, Nigeria.
You understand? So
you write Niger before you write Nigeria.
You understand? So there's no way we can afford to be at war. And please, Nigeria and Niger are not at war. We are not at war. We are best of neighbors. It's only the fact that Nigeria had to do the needful. Because the chairmanship of ECOWAS now is a Nigerian. Our own President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So those sanctions have to come through so that, because we have responsibility to ECOWAS as a member of the bloc, so we must ensure that all these things are understood in the right perspective, so that we don't have rumor mongers here and there, peddling rumors. So that's the show for today. So we'll just take a short pause now for other segments of the program to come your way. Please stay tuned.